Hello there, it's Ged Graham here from Seven Drunken Nights, the story of the Dubliners. I've been asked to do a Q&A for our fan page, so we've had lots and lots of questions come in, and hopefully I'll be able to answer them for you. The first question is from Sally Wills, and it says, will you be coming back to the Belgrave in Coventry? Well, Sally, we will be coming back to the Belgrade, and we're coming back on next year's tour, 2023 Spring Tour, on the 4th of April at the Belgrade in Coventry. We had a great sellout show on the last night of the tour this year, and we're delighted to be rebooked back in, and we'll be back in Coventry on the 4th of April, so see you then. Right, we've got a question here from someone we know really well, Dave Richardson. When are you going to retire? Oh, well, that's a very difficult question. I don't think I've got time to retire. I always thought that I would sort of come off the road when I get into my sort of mid-60s, but it just seems to be getting busier and busier, and I'm still enjoying it. I'm still enjoying performing, still enjoying writing and being out there on the road. So the answer to today's question is not in the foreseeable future. To tell the truth, I don't know what I'd do with myself if I did retire, because my passion is music, theatre, writing, performing, and I get the chance to do that pretty much every day. So yeah, I can't see myself retiring anytime in the future. Right, the next question is from Marguerite O'Donoghue. Marguerite runs the fan page for us, and she says, Jed, what are your favourite theatres to perform in? Those with the massive auditorium and a huge audience, but them further away, or the smaller ones where they're more intimate? Oh, well, I like pretty much every theatre that we play in. The big auditoriums, your big theatres, like say the West End, Adelphi in the West End, Manchester Opera House, Liverpool Empire, huge audiences, and you really get a great feeling from those audiences. You know, the noise from them when they're applauding and joining in the sing-alongs is immense, and a great pleasure to be part of. So I love those occasions. I really do love those occasions. But I equally love the small venues when it's a bit more of an intimate audience. You know, you do feel the difference, and you do see the difference, and it's the very different experiences. But my favourite theatres, probably from me personally, are the old theatres, the theatres from the 1800s, because they've got so much history. Not just on the stage and in the auditorium, but backstage in the dressing rooms. You know, to be in the dressing rooms that were used by, Charlie Chaplin, or, the silent movie actors. Trying to think of the names now, it's escaped me. But Laurel and Hardy, having those dressing rooms and being able to sort of soak up the atmosphere. And the stories that go with it, the legendary performances, to stand on the stage where the Beatles have performed has been a huge thing for me. So I wouldn't say I have a favourite, but I do like the older theatres. I love the big occasions, and I love the small intimate ones. I think the answer to the question, Marguerite, would be I just love being out there and performing in theatre in particular. It's a great blessing for me to be able to do that. So yeah, don't have any favourites, but if I did, it would be the older theatres. Okay, and our next question is from Esther Wienick over in Holland. Well, we saw Esther over in our show at the Helix in Dublin, and she has asked, what country have you never been to but really want to go to for either a holiday or performing? Oh, that's a real big one. I've been very lucky to have travelled an awful lot over the last sort of 50 years, both professionally and as a young man backpacking across Europe. But I would love to probably perform in America. I have done some dates, club dates and bar dates in America. But one of my big ambitions is to perform on Broadway. In particular at the Radio City Music Hall. That would be perhaps the ultimate one for me. I have two lifelong ambitions: the Radio City Music Hall in New York and the London Palladium in London. Those are two venues on my bucket list. But I think maybe Australia would be a great place to perform, a great country to visit. And we're hoping to be able to get out there in 2023. Sydney Opera House would be the ultimate, but just to go and see the sights of Australia would be wonderful, and to get to perform there would be even better. To go on holiday, holiday destination for me would have to be probably India. I'd like to go to India and just sort of soak up the atmosphere there in India. That would be wonderful for me. So I hope that answers your question. Now, moving on to Ray Warden. When you first started 5 years ago, did you believe that Seven Drunken Nights would become as successful as it has done, or has it exceeded your expectations? Well, when we started off 5 years ago, we didn't know what was going to happen, and all I can say, it has more than exceeded our expectations. We didn't really have a plan. We just enjoyed the music, put together what we thought was a good show, and were lucky enough to get out there and play in theatres for the first tour in 2017. The reception was fantastic, so it gave us the encouragement to improve the production and go out again. And just year on year, we've just been blown away by the enthusiasm of the audience. The houses have been fantastic. Selling out places like Liverpool Empire, and I've mentioned the Glasgow Kings, going into the West End, selling out in Dublin at the Helix, selling out at the Belfast Waterfront. We could never have hoped to even play those venues, never mind sell them out. So in answer to your question, Ray, it's more than exceeded our expectations, and it seems like the future is just going to grow on and be stronger and stronger as we start to expand into Europe. So yeah, it's way exceeded my expectation. So Leslie Slater, what age did you start performing, and what got you into music? Oh well, I started probably performing when I was about sort of 3-4 years old. House was always full of music. My mum and dad were both singers. Singing around the house was nothing unusual. Both of them singing at the top of their voices, and us as kids joining in. We had lots of aunties and uncles, so like any Irish family, when the parents and uncles and aunties came back from the pub, the party would start down in the kitchen, and that's when I got to do my party pieces. 4 or 5 years old, get up and sing a song, and it kind of stemmed from that. So I never had any inhibitions about performing, because it was such a natural thing. And I think that's probably the age that I am, and in the 60s, people made their own entertainment. So I think it was happening in houses all over Ireland, and certainly all over England. Scotland, people would come back, after the pub and have a sing-song and a party in the house. I know that Billy Connolly mentioned in one of his TV programs about going back to people's houses after the pub and listening out for the music, the sing-songs going on, and knocking on the door and going in and joining in. So I come from that kind of era. But professionally, I started singing at school and playing guitar. I had a little band at school, which was great. And then from about 14 onwards, as it was more serious, I started to play club and pub dates, which is mad really when you consider 14 years old and going out and gigging. And I've not stopped since. So yeah, 1974, I think I'd done my first semi-pro gig, and I've been doing it ever since. So started at a really young age, and not really stopped, and hope that I don't have to stop in the near future or anytime soon. So I hope that answers your question, Leslie. Right, moving on to the next question. Maureen Mori. What do you feel is your greatest achievement career-wise? Whoa, that's a big question. I think my greatest achievement, obviously, has got to be the success of Seven Drunken Nights, which has opened the door for me to do so many other things, like Fairy Tale of New York, Coming Home for Christmas, and Carol, the music of Carol King. Um, so, yeah, I think my greatest achievements are ahead of me. I think, as I'm building a great team of people to work with, you know quite a few of them. I think we've got Adam Evans, who is now our musical director on all of the shows, going to be musical director on Seven Drunken Nights as we move forward. Danny, of course, who's going to be not only in the show with Adam and myself, but he's also taken up the stage management role across the shows. So he's going to be looking after all of the staging side of things. We've got Ali Penman, of course, as a production manager. Then our team of front of house engineers and lighting engineers, Tom Nicholson, Nat Ben. So many people are involved. Dave Richardson, of course, as our AV producer and working more on our social media. Dan, who works with Dave. So our team is expanding rapidly. It's not just one person, trying to make all these things work. We have a huge team of people. And of course, the guys at Chameleon Music Marketing, Helen and the team, Sophie. And of course, one of my best friends and business partner, Ross Mills, over there at Prestige Productions. We work tirelessly and daily on trying to make the shows better and bring new shows on board. So to answer your question, Maureen, I think to date it's probably been Seven Drunken Nights and Fairy Tale in New York, and of course Carole King. Those are great achievements for me personally, but I think our biggest achievements are yet to come. And I can't wait for the future to unfold. But as I said, it's not just me, it's a whole team of people that make this happen. And I'm delighted that we have such great professional people to work with. So yeah, we'll keep you posted as the more and more achievements happen. Moving on to Tracy Day. Who were your musical influences growing up? Oh, that's a big one. It's got to be... Well, the Dubliners certainly were a constant in our house, obviously being born and brought up in Dublin in the 60s and being at the right age when the Dubliners sort of hit the big time. We were so proud of Ronnie Drew and Luke Kelly and the rest of the guys. They spoke in the same accents that we spoke in, and we were very, very proud of their achievements. So I was heavily influenced by them because they were sort of what was happening when I was a young boy. And then I discovered the Beatles, and then my life changed completely. As soon as I heard, I think it was This Boy, which is, I can't remember the B-side of I Want to Hold Your Hand. I heard that and I just didn't know what was going on. What I discovered was the vocal harmonies and just the music of the Beatles has now been a lifelong journey. For Beatle fans out there watching Get Back, the documentary has just opened up more chapters of that great story. And only this week, or let's just say last week, I got Paul McCartney, the lyrics book, which is it's just a treasure chest of insight into Paul McCartney and John Lennon and their songwriting. So my biggest musical influence growing up would have been the Dubliners and the Beatles, and then it's like going down a rabbit hole. You start to discover so many other artists. I mean, there was always country and western in the house. There was always Johnny Cash and Tammy Wynette, George Jones. There was always the sort of Irish and country, Larry Cunningham, Philomena Begley. They were always our Sunday morning record player moments for my dad. So I was hearing that music growing up, and it was great. Every Sunday was like a music day in our house. And then as I got to a certain age, putting my Beatle records on, sometimes not as welcome as Johnny Cash on a Sunday morning, but we all got a turn at the turntable. So that was those are the sort of the main influences. But I've got to say the Beatles. Then as I got a bit older, Bruce Springsteen, again a huge, Bob Dylan, really the classics. Those are my influences. Another question from Tracy is, are any of your kids following in your footsteps? Well, that would have to be a no. They show absolutely no interest in music, apart from listening to it. or certainly not performing it or writing it or being involved in anything to do with music. And I can honestly say I'm probably very grateful that they're not into it, that they love listening to it and enjoying it and going to gigs. But I think it's a lifestyle that I wouldn't like my kids to do and take up, because it does take you away. You don't really have much family time. I'm very lucky that with my wife Christine, that she is so understanding and so supportive, and we've been married 20 odd years, so that's a sort of a testimony to sort of being able to live with a musician. I wouldn't wish that on my kids, living in hotels, sleeper buses, living out of a suitcase. I'd rather them go on and follow their own path. But they like music, but they're not performing it. So, next question is from Lindsay Jones. Did you take up music before you left Dublin? Well, I left Dublin when I think it was 9 years old. Was learning the tin whistle and the melodica, which was a very popular instrument in the early 60s. It's like a keyboard that you blow into. If you Google it, you'll see it. You don't see them about very much these days. But at school, you learn the tin whistle and the melodica, and you learn all sorts of tunes. On the tin whistle, you learn your trad tunes, and on the melodica, you learn sort of the pop songs of the day. And it was great, because it was always singing lessons, singing songs, singing hymns, and playing music. So that was a really really important thing for me. So I did take up music, but just a very recreational level. But one of the songs that we learned on the melodica was All Kinds of Everything by Dana, which had just won the Eurovision Song Contest in 1970. And that was the year that we moved to England. But I remember learning the song, and there was a huge buzz in Ireland, as you would imagine, of winning the Eurovision Song Contest, and Dana was an icon. And then nearly 40 years later, I had the great pleasure of playing in her band for quite a few dates on the UK tour, which was quite amazing, from that 9-year-old, 10-year-old playing All Kinds of Everything on the melodica to performing with her on stage and singing duets 40 years later. So and do you come from a musical family, is the other question from Lindsay. My mum and dad were both musical, both singers. My mum sang in some of the Flarkiols and done very, very well. She's a beautiful singer, always singing around the house. My dad was the same, always singing around the house. Both had great voices, and it was just a normal thing. But as far as I know, none of my sort of immediate family were in groups or bands, but there was always music around the house. So I hope that answers your question, Lindsay. Right, moving on to Rich British Mod. Between Seven Drunken Nights, Carol, and Fairy Tale of New York, do you get time to relax and wind down? Oh well, that's no. That would be the answer to that. I'm working hard at trying to learn how to relax. That's the hardest thing that I do, is trying to relax and trying to, as they say now, live in the moment. What I do every day is what I love to do. So, it is relaxing. It's hard work, but it's what I love to do. So to relax, I listen to music, but I listen to music when I'm working. So there is no distinct line between my work and my relaxation or winding down. I do like to go away on holiday, and I do like to sit by the pool for maybe half a day. Then I'll get drunk, and then the next day I'll say, I'll just check my emails just to see has anything happened, and then that's it for the rest of the holiday. But then I find that very relaxing, because I can go and sort of do a bit of work, have a sleep in the afternoon, do a little bit of work, do a bit of writing which is very relaxing. Yeah, so I think it's a bit like the retirement question. I think what I love to do is what I love to do, and I get great relaxation from it. And another question from Rich British Mod. Do you look back at what you have achieved, and how do you think you've done? Do I look back at what I've achieved? It's a similar answer to one of the previous questions. Yeah, I mean, I kind of just get on with it. You know, every performance that we do analyse it and see can we do it better, and usually that we can do it better. So I look back at things that I've done and try to work out how I could do it better, what went well, what didn't go so well, and just sort of use that as you know, a marker for the next project. So yeah, it's pretty pretty straightforward on that one. I don't tend to look back, you know, because I'm in the moment with the show or the gig or the performance I'm doing, and you know, I know when it's good and I know when it's not so good, and if it's not so good, I make sure the next night that I really focus on making that better. Ultimately, then something else will go wrong in my performance that I'll put right in the next show. And that's a great thing about doing live theatre, is that you do get the opportunity to try things out, you know, be a little bit more daring in your performance, and if it works, keep it in. If it doesn't, move on to the, you know, a new version of it. But yeah, I'm very pleased with where we are at the moment with all of the shows, and improving them on a daily basis. Okay, I've got a general question here. Do you do shout-outs during the show? Well, unfortunately, we don't do shout-outs during the show, and the reason for that is it's a scripted show. So everything is timed, so all the lights are timed to what we say and what we play in the music, etc. So it's very much a scripted and programmed show. So even though it does feel like it's you know, very ad lib, and you know, we're very relaxed about everything, everything is timed, and we do the same thing every night. So we don't do shout outs because we can't really fit them into the show. The show in the second half is already running at 1 hour and 10 minutes, so we could be there all night doing the shout outs. But if you do want to have a shout out, or you want to wish someone a happy birthday, whatever, just drop us a message, and by all means we'll do a recorded one for you, and we can send it out and you can share them with your family and friends. But unfortunately, during the show, we don't really have the opportunity to do shout outs. But as I said, if you do really want one, drop us a message on Messenger or on our Facebook, and we will do an individual shout out for you and send it back to you.